The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University is honored to be a supporter of Indian Country Today. ASU offers the only online undergraduate digital media literacy degree, teaching students how to recognize and combat inaccuracies on all platforms. They are using cutting-edge tools and tactics to separate fact from fiction in a digital world overloaded with misinformation. Learn more at cronkite.asu.edu.
This is Indian Country Today.
Esquili, yes, thank you for joining us. I'm Patty Thalahungva. Here are the headlines from Indian Country Today. An infrastructure bill is quickly transforming into game-changing legislation. Congressional Democrats say the $547 billion Invest in America Act is the answer to transportation spending over the next 5 years. The legislation will fund and set rules for core federal programs that will shape transportation and infrastructure. Streetsblog.org reports that the FAST Act, the current surface transportation bill, expires this September. Ho-Chunk citizen and U.S. Representative Sharice Davids talked about the 19-hour markup session in the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee.
I actually just had a marathon markup in the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. We were marking up the Invest in America Act, which is the transportation and infrastructure portion of the bigger infrastructure package, and we're sending that to the House floor. We did get some bipartisan support on that, and I'm really looking forward to us making some pretty transformative investments in infrastructure in the near future.
The act is a critical companion to the massive American jobs plan that President Biden is still fighting to pass. The bill will now advance to the full House. The Quechan tribe is preparing for a fight over a gold mine on its ancestral lands. They are in southern Arizona, and their traditional lands also cross into California. For 1,000 years, the tribe has held ceremonies around the area called Indian Pass in California. Now, ArizonaCentral.com reports Core Mining, a Canadian company, is preparing to apply for a new mining permit with the U.S. Bureau of Land Management. The CEO says it can extract more than 1 million ounces of gold without permanently damaging the environment. Brian Golding is a member of a group of Quechan people concerned about cultural preservation. He disagrees with the CEO and says the mining method Core plans on using will definitely harm the land. And he says the company doesn't have a plan on how to compact the soil that's disturbed in the process. He says after the mining, they could see the ground elevated up to 25 feet in some places. The BLM will be conducting the required reviews as it considers issuing a permit. A tribal citizen from the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians in North Carolina is hoping to get her tribe to pass a same-sex marriage law. Tamara Thompson submitted the ordinance for the June 1st Tribal Council meeting, but it was not acted on, and the chairman said it was dead since the council did not start the process on that ordinance. Thompson is a member of the tribe's LGBTQ community. She says the council's lack of action both disgusted her and broke her heart. Tribal law specifically defines marriage as an institution between a man and a woman. Still, Thompson is hopeful that can be changed. She's resubmitted her ordinance for the July 1st agenda and plans to be there with allies to support the change. Chelsea Dungy is finally home after a nearly 2-week road trip. Dungy is a guard for the Dallas Wings. She's a citizen of the Cherokee Nation and the only Native American playing in the WNBA. This is her first season in the professional league. On Friday night, she saw less than 2 minutes of playing time against the Phoenix Mercury. She says long road trips are a time to bond with her teammates, especially for the rookies. And she says representing Indian country brings exposure to Native cultures.
It feels amazing, to be in the WNBA and to represent, my culture. And because, we don't get a lot of attention or a lot of light. So I just want to tell people that, it can, if you work hard and you stay the course and you stay on that path and you chase your dreams, anything can happen no matter where you come from or, your ethnicity or anything like that.
And Kyrie Irving, the only Native American in the NBA, is healing from an injury he sustained in yesterday's game against the Milwaukee Bucks. Irving is the guard for the Brooklyn Nets and appeared to roll his ankle after a play. Irving is from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. No word if he'll be able to play in Game 5 between the Nets and the Milwaukee Bucks tomorrow night. And those are the headlines from Indian Country Today. I'm Patty Thalohungva. How are tribal casinos doing after the pandemic? Victor Rocha will give us an update.
And sports betting is expanding at tribal casinos. We'll be right back. Changes are coming to the gaming industry that already are affecting tribally owned casinos. Across the country, more and more states are opening up sports betting, opening up access to quick bets. Another change is the introduction of mobile apps that allow people to gamble from everywhere. Breaking it all down for us today is Victor Rocha. He's the founder of Pechanga.net and is this year the conference chairman for the National Indian Gaming Association. Welcome, Victor.
Hello, Mark. How you doing?
Good. You're a astute observer of the gaming industry, and there's a lot of things going on right now that are impacting tribal enterprises. I want to start by just asking the big picture question. How are tribes coming out of the pandemic?
Mark, that's a good question. I'm seeing different levels of recovery at different places in the country. If you look at a place like California, they're going like gangbusters. And then you look at other regions in the country, they seem to be opening up a little slower. I think some of the speed bumps in the economy are big factors in that. You're looking at an employment crisis. There's a lot of jobs that still need to be filled for a lot of the casinos and the hotels and stuff like that. And then the other thing is the economic crisis that we have coming, dealing with services and goods, which are going to be a roadblock to full recovery. Tribes are going to be able to build new facilities and stuff like that. So we've got a lot of new issues on the table that we didn't have before, but I'm still optimistic.
It's interesting. Well, two things you mentioned I want to just follow up on. One, employment. It's fascinating that through this pandemic, more people are saying, I'm not sure I want that job. And it's a real fundamental shift in the way people think.
It is really quite amazing, isn't it? I know when I go down to my tribal casino over the weekend, I can see, I'm talking to the employees, you've seen the waiters are starting to work double shifts in different restaurants and stuff like that. A lot of services aren't up to the snuff as they usually are. So yeah, and then look at, you leave your casino, you go to McDonald's, you see the same thing. You go to Lowe's, you see the same thing. So it's affecting the entire country.
Well, another thing you see at Lowe's that's affecting tribal industry is inflation. And it's something we really haven't dealt with in a long time, but the cost of everything going up is something that really changes the dynamic.
I was really shocked the other day when I bought what seemed like a minimal amount of groceries for the homes, and it was almost $100. And so I had to do a double take. And so it's usually, I'm kind of surprised, and I'm sure it's affecting other people much worse than it is in my community. But yeah, that's a big issue, Mark.
The other thing I wanted to explore is the rise of two trends, or not trends yet, but facts. And one is the rise of sports betting in certain states, and also the use of apps for gaming anywhere. Let's start with sports betting.
Well, as you know, since the pandemic opened up, we've seen this amazing explosion of sports betting. Everyone seems to be rushing towards it. The thing that concerns me is there's a lot of state-sponsored gambling now, which will eventually create a clash between the tribes and the states. But that's definitely something to be watching, because it creates a lot of opportunity, and it also creates other issues that are unforeseen at the time. And then your second question about apps, that's a big part of this. The tribes have to be involved. You have to reach out to the customer. Everybody's going in the digital realm, and it's very important that the tribes are there to meet their customers.
I know you're an observer of the international scene as well as local, and other countries have had kind of open sports betting for a long time. the United Kingdom, for example, where you can bet on pretty much anything. Are we moving in that direction as a country?
I sure hope not. You know, and I think the UK is probably the worst example that you could use if you want to look at sports betting. And the reason why I say this, because I have spent a lot of time in the UK in the last 10 years, and I've watched the industry go from, you know, when I first got there, it was like, oh, wow, we have sports betting, the sky's not falling down, you know, the world can exist, and except they had a sports book on every corner and then one in the middle of the block. And so they became very irresponsible to the point of where, you know, a lot of people don't remember this, but Paddy Power at the time, which has been bought by another bigger sports betting company, sent Dennis Rodman to North Korea for basketball diplomacy. Well, that was all sponsored by an online gaming company. So, you know, the UK, I think, has got a real problem with gambling addiction, with the industry that wasn't paying attention, and a country and regulators that had the eye off the ball. I think you're going to see a lot different story when it comes to the United States, but we've all watched them and watched the UK and the European market. So we're very familiar with how reckless a lot of these people are. But I think the tribes, and I think the United States in general wants to make sure that the gambling addiction doesn't become a big issue like it has in the UK.
With the expansion of sports gaming, it also changes the equation between state governments and sports franchises who are now potentially competitors to tribes. The good thing is tribes are there first, but how does that shake out, do you think?
Well, you know, like anything, right? When you're dealing with the government, I have to go back to the Treaty of Fort Laramie. You know what I mean? Anytime that we have anything good, they're always going to try and take it. So I come from that school of thinking. I know there's a lot of other people who have a different mentality, but, you know, I'm Native American and I can't seem to forget. So, you know, tribes have to be on the ball. They have to watch. The states are looking at gambling expansion for tax revenue. It takes gaming off the reservation. The tribes are still disadvantaged, especially with dealing with apps, because we have the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act. So, you know, if you can't take a bet off the reservation, and that seems to be a real hindrance for a lot of tribes going forward. That means either you have to change IGRA or they have to get a license with the state to make it legal for them to have online gaming.
You mentioned state taxes. One of my favorite quotes is Benjamin Franklin, and he said, "Gambling is the only tax that people willingly pay."
Right, right. He was much smarter than I. So the guy who flew a kite with a key and electricity. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So.
Some of this means that innovation will have a course, because as new competitors come on, the tribal enterprises that are ahead of the game are going to be looking for new ways to do things, are they not?
Absolutely. And then, you know, you realize, you know, the market isn't created even. So it really becomes a competitive marketplace. And so the best product is going to win. That's why you're seeing tribes team up with these larger companies. Although you see some other tribes that have decided, you know what, I want to go on my own. I want to create it on my own. So, you know, I think, you know, you mentioned something that I think is very important with this, is that the tribes are ready for the competitive marketplace. They've had 30 years of gaming, some places a lot less, but they've become really amazing business people and entrepreneurs when it comes to gaming. And stepping back a little bit, you put them on the world market, you know, the world stage, they're really ranked in the top. We've created casinos. When I go to Europe, I mean, the European casinos barely rank. You have to go to Singapore and Macau to start getting the type of quality that you see in any country. So, you know, I think they are ready for a competitive marketplace. But I think, you know, 30 years still isn't long enough, you know, so that's kind of my take on it.
Well, in fact, we're seeing this already with the movement of some tribes into, of all places, Nevada.
Right. You look at, you have Mohegan Sun, which is managing the Virgin Casino, and then you have the San Manuel tribe, which just purchased the Palms Casino for $650 million, I believe. It's just off the top of my head. I know it's in the ballpark. So yeah, the tribes, again, I think it has to goes to what I was talking about, is the maturation of an industry, the tribes becoming more astute and better business people, and looking for expansion. And you know, there's another issue here too, which is, you know, gaming is the only thing that has really worked at the level for generating revenue. And so you're looking at tribes looking at these lateral moves, get into other markets. You have other tribes that are moving completely out and looking at diversification outside of gaming. So everyone is looking for diversification, even the states.
You know, it's interesting, and maybe this is wild, but it seems to me there are two forms of gambling. One is like sports betting, where you want to make some money and you just make a sheer wager. But the other is the experience. And that's where tribes go in, where you're surrounded by things that are really cool. And it's not just the gaming, but it's the actual total environment. And that's really something you can't replicate on a cell phone or in any other format.
Yeah, you know, the myth of the tribal casino or mobile gaming is going to kill the tribal casino, I think, is overblown. I think if the pandemic's taught us anything, it's the fact that we are social animals and we cannot wait to get back in a place where we can share each other, share the experience, and be close to each other. I think we all this weekend felt maybe for the first time that the pandemic was gone, except for the loss of our loved ones, obviously. But, you know, it's about entertainment. It's about obviously gambling, entertainment, and the tribal casinos offer a lot more than just gambling. You know, it's a bigger, better experience, and mobile doesn't have that type of experience. Mobile's for convenience, you know what I mean? So if you look at some of the online gaming companies in Europe, they would tell you that the only way to get entertained is online gaming. But you know, when I went to my casino this weekend, it was absolutely packed. People having a good time, a lot of masks, a lot of entertainment, a lot of food. People are dying to get back in a place with each other. You know, it's just very obvious to me.
I think about kind of the crazy way that this has evolved, because the first time I went to Europe and went to a casino in Monaco, you actually had to wear a tie at a certain time. Gaming didn't open till 5 p.m. It was so formal. It was just really stifling almost.
It is really, and then they're always very small and, you know, really cute, and you know, there's only one angle to take a picture because you only got a couple tables and stuff like that. So yeah, gaming has changed. It's become more democratized. Everyone can have it. I think the cell phone was a big part of that, and putting a casino in everybody's pocket. But like I said, you know, it only has so much fun. It's not the same thing as going to a restaurant, sitting down with your family, or more importantly, is that you go to any tribal casino in the country, a family going out on a Saturday night, mom, grandma, everyone's sitting around the slot machine watching grandma win. You know, that seems to be just as American as apple pie nowadays.
We only have about 30 seconds, but I want to ask, what makes you most optimistic?
The fact that the tribes really are great entrepreneurs and business people. I would bet my money on red.
Victor Rocha, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. Great seeing you. Thanks, everyone.
And we'll be right back. Oil pipelines are making news with the decision to drop the Keystone XL pipeline last week and the ongoing fight against the Enbridge pipelines. Marionette Pember is our national correspondent covering this issue, and she joins us today to give us an update. Welcome, Marionette.
Hi, Mark. Good to be here.
Well, let's start with an update on the latest ruling.
Yes, there's so much going on. Just as we're talking now, I got an email from the Minnesota court system that the Court of Appeals actually upheld the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission approval of Line 3 as far as their certificate of need. However, there was one dissenting opinion from a judge involved. We're going to have a press conference coordinated by some of the Enbridge opponents to kind of clarify and give us a better sense of, you know, of what that means for them. So that was quite a big decision that they were looking forward to, and I imagine they're quite disappointed. As you know, a week ago on June 7th, about 179 people were arrested at one of the Enbridge construction sites, actually a pumping station, it's called, for trespassing, and including a Los Angeles Times reporter, Alan Weissman, who's like 74, and they like strip searched him apparently, and people have very much come out strongly against that. The Committee to Protect Journalists actually denounced the arrest. Right now, as we're speaking, there is a camp that they're calling Camp Firelight. that has been put together by some Anishinaabe, some Ojibwe women, and they're conducting ceremony. This is rather near the area in Solway, Minnesota, near Coffee Pot Landing, and also was the site of some actions on June 7th. Dawn Goodwin, who's of the White Earth and Mississippi bands, citizen of those bands, and head of the RISE Coalition, which is an environmental conservation organization, told me that they received a letter from Enbridge yesterday informing them that they would be issuing citations and removing them from that site. Currently, although she isn't able to see them, she has reports that there are several, there's police from several jurisdictions who are, staging at a staging area and getting ready to come in and remove them. However, what's very interesting is the sheriff of Clearwater County, who had been part of this Northern Lights Task Force, which is a coalition of counties that are impacted by the Enbridge Line 3 pipeline, and had received funding from Enbridge. Actually, it was agreed upon by the Public Utilities Commission to police quote unquote protests. Clearwater is part of that coalition, but they are opposing any kind of citations against these women, and who have said that they will leave by the end of the day. So they're engaged in ceremonies and said they'll leave. So according to Dawn Goodwin, Sheriff Darren Halverson is sort of guarding them and trying to hold back these police from other jurisdictions.
I want to pull back and ask kind of a big picture question. Are folks thinking or hopeful, I guess, that the Biden administration will weigh in given what's happened with Keystone XL and the review of Dakota Access?
Yes, I think they certainly are. And what I think is very interesting, he's in, President Biden is in England now with and the group of 7 nations actually issued an agreement to end direct support for coal power generation. And the folks opposing Line 3, they compare it to the production of and their transmission of the tar sands is equivalent to 50 new coal-fired power plants. Yet, we're not hearing anything from President Biden. And I think, also, even more striking is we're not hearing anything from Governor Walz, the Democratic governor of Minnesota, who had initially had opposed the pipeline. But I think, for both the president and for Governor Walz, their commitment to labor is the thing that is the real sticking point for them.
Well, and I should mention that what makes Enbridge different from some of these other pipelines is at least under guise of renewal rather than of a new project, gives them a different kind of playing field.
Yes, and they rebranded really what had originally been the Sandpiper pipeline, which was defeated. Many people are comparing it that actually that's what this is, and I think they're correct. I mean, it's not a replacement in the sense that if it were a replacement, you'd be replacing it with the same thing in the same capacity. This is a larger capacity pipeline, larger gauge. It's taking a different route, and it will have the ability to transport tar sands oil. So currently, apparently it's rather more difficult to transport it in these smaller gauge pipelines. And if they were using age, as a gauge for the safety of a pipeline in that corridor, they number their pipelines, and I think in that corridor there are 6 pipelines, 1 through 6, so 1A through 6. So using that logic, wouldn't one be more interested in replacing 1A and 2, conceivably because they're older? So there are a lot of people, they're saying that argument doesn't really hold water.
What's it like at the camps? Are people engaged in thinking that big arrests are coming, or do they see kind of another event coming?
Well, I think particularly at this Camp Firelight, it's impending, potentially that, people could come, that these members of this task force, the Northern Lights Task Force, could come in and arrest them if they don't leave before tonight. Some of the other camps, now there's a treaty camp near the Red Lake Reservation, which is farther north, also along the pipeline route near St. Hilaire. And they had some visits from, the commissioners of the public safety and also from the state police. And they determined that since they were on public land, they really they are in fact demonstrating, exercising their treaty rights to hunt, fish, and gather on ceded land. So, they're still staying there. There's actually a camp created by Winona LaDuke on another location along the Shell River, in which she is, saying that she's also exercising her treaty rights, also public land. So that's what's really interesting about all this is it is, an opportunity to kind of exercise the outer limits, if you will, of treaty rights. There also then is she and Tanya Abid have a very small prayer lodge right in the middle of the pipeline route in Aitkin County, which is near the town of Palisade, which is a little bit west of the area of the people at the Firelight Camp. They have been very aggressive there in trying to remove both Tanya and Winona. So as far as what they're thinking, I'm not clear. They're kind of cagey because they don't want to let Enbridge know what they're going to be doing. But I think they're there for they're calling this the summer of protest. So I think they're there for the summer at least.
Well, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you, Marinette Pember.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world today. For more, look at IndianCountryToday.com, and we'll be back tomorrow with another edition. I'm Mark Trahant.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run. Standing rock. This is Indian Country Today.